Chapter 11. Of all the things Wyatt was expecting to see upon arriving at the hangar, seeing 30 Marines lining up before a shuttle was at the bottom of his list. Locating Cynthia proved to be an easy task. As he approached, he noticed that her posture was firmer than the previous times he'd seen her. "Is she preparing to board a ship?" he asked himself as the presence of the Marines left little room to think of anything else. "I thought the boardings were already over. Do they need me to escort the shuttle?" Cynthia turned to him as he entered her field of view, making him uneasy. He still wasn't used to her firm gaze, and her features clashed against her attitude fiercely. Still, he stopped a few steps in front of her and saluted. "Lieutenant Wyatt Staples reporting, Lady Cynthia." Cynthia nodded once. "Good. Captain Milcades, you may commence," she ordered, and the Marine at the head of the formation simply made a hand gesture. A moment later, the group of Marines began boarding the shuttle. "Congratulations are in order, Lieutenant Wyatt. Taking down a cruiser is no easy feat for a group of fighters, less so when dealing with ships and enemies that we know little about." "It was a team effort, Lady Cynthia. I thank you for your praise, nevertheless," Wyatt replied cordially before taking a moment to see the Marines. "May I ask which ship is to boarded, Lady Cynthia?" "None," came her dry, on-point reply. "None," Wyatt repeated, confused. "Am I not here to act as an escort for your shuttle?" he asked, sparing only a quick glance at the sidearm hanging from her waist and the sword strapped on her back. "You are here to fly the shuttle," Cynthia replied as the passenger door closed and sealed itself. "Come, we take the front." "I obey," said Wyatt, puzzled and surprised by her answer. With no other choice to make, he followed Cynthia to the front section of the shuttle. The two entered the cockpit, although he wasn't sure if calling it a cockpit was the right word for it. The shuttle was larger than his old hauler, since it was more of a troop carrier than anything else, but in design was similar if only more pleasing to look at, and more advanced. The cockpit was as large as his quarters, and he was certain it was larger by a good amount, and there were 8 available seats to take, 2 for the pilot and co-pilot if need be, and 6 for other important passengers. His mouth ran dry when he saw the beautiful blonde princess sitting in one of the passenger seats not wearing her elegant dress. Instead, she was wearing an armor set similar to the one Cynthia was wearing, but purple in color, matching her eyes. Unlike the blue-haired bodyguard, she carried no weapons, and a helmet laid peacefully on her lap. His cheeks blushed when she noticed their arrival and offered him a pleasant, friendly smile. Immediately after, he bowed his head. "My princess," he greeted and moved to the pilot seat, sitting on it without hesitation while the door closed and hissed, sealing them entirely. The next few minutes passed in silence while he ran diagnostics, checked the integrity of the outside cameras, and waited for the mechanics and technicians to give him the clear for takeoff. "Are you always so quiet, Wyatt?" Clara asked softly all of a sudden. "Only when performing routine diagnostics, Clara," Wyatt replied curtly. Several seconds of silence passed until Clara spoke up again. "Does my presence make you nervous, Wyatt?" "What do you expect me to answer?" "Yes, of course you're making me nervous. For starters, why are you here? Why am I here to fly this shuttle? Where are you going? What's with the Marines? Knowing what's going on usually helps, you know." He thought in a panic, but his face remained professional. "Never, Clara. I'm just surprised and confused as to how am I to serve you." Clara let out a dignified huff. "Please, Wyatt, you don't have to be so formal, remember? I'd like to believe that we can be friends, or at least be friendly to each other." "In that case," he swallowed nervously. "Clara, what's going on? I'm very confused." "Secrecy is always necessary in the world of royalty and nobility, Wyatt. Every action has to be taken to ensure a modicum of style, presence, and deniability all packaged into a single moment. It can be tiring and absurd, but, as I stated earlier, necessary," she revealed with her same friendly yet serious tone. "Cynthia, if you will." Cynthia approached and handed Wyatt a small tablet. "Follow these coordinates. Take us in at regular speed," she ordered. Wyatt took the tablet and immediately read through the information presented on it. It was a navigation path leading to Woodshaft that avoided a clear route from the fleet itself. It would mask their arrival as merely one more of the dozens of ships heading there, or already docked at the station. She wants to go there? Why? Wyatt pondered as some questions were answered, but others formed. Bowing his head, he uttered, "I obey," and took his position on the pilot seat. Cynthia sat next to Clara and waited for the technicians to finish their jobs. Half a minute later, he was given the clear to depart, and so he brought the engine to life. 2 minutes later, the shuttle was far away from the exalted Virtue and the rest of the fleet itself. Silently, Wyatt punched in the coordinates for the first point and relaxed in his seat, keeping an eye over the sensor monitor just in case. "Now that we are away from unwanted ears and eyes," Clara began, her voice relaxed and holding a tone similar to the one she had during their private chat. "Wyatt, humor me if you will." "Ask and I shall answer, Clara," he replied, unable to stop himself from feeling relaxed in her presence for some reason. "Tell me, what do you think about the battle? What are your honest opinions about it?" she asked. Again, this uncertainty. Is she trying to test me, or is she just being friendly? Are all royals like her? I can't read her like I read other nobles. That's downright scary. Focus, Wyatt. Just answer her honestly, Wyatt thought before turning around and allowing the autopilot to take control of the shuttle. That's a difficult question to answer, Clara. But if I am allowed to be completely honest. Clara nodded while Cynthia eyed him closely. There's no way those ships were there by coincidence. It was a trap at worst and a desperate ambush at best. My brother believes the same. So do I, Clara replied. Be assured, Wyatt, that he does not blame you for this assault. The black ships and the battle cruiser were unaccounted factors, but your information was correct regarding everything else. Tell me, Wyatt, what do you believe is the cause for their presence in the first place? Wyatt felt a knot forming in his stomach as words poured out of his mouth. That either Duke Draymore has such immaculate foresight and a strategic genius so far beyond our own that fighting him will be pointless, or that there is a traitor in the fleet. Possibly more than one feeding his forces information, he replied, crossing his arms. I pray, and do forgive me for saying this, that we are dealing with the latter. For if it is the former, then we have no hope of success with our limited forces, Clara. An astute observation, Wyatt. It is a conclusion I share with you, but I have the benefit of knowing more of my uncle than you do. Duke Cornelius Draymore of Camrim is a great strategist, a veteran soldier and a superb administrator, but not even he can be everywhere nor account for every possibility. We would not be having this conversation otherwise, Clara replied, sighing tiredly, her eyes reflecting the pain of betrayal and uncertainty. I do not know why he has staged this coup. I doubt it is the thirst for power alone that motivates him and that strikes fear into my heart. Clara, Cynthia said, reaching to hold her friend's hand for a moment. Clara gave her friend a smile before continuing. Take this battle into account. My uncle couldn't order this assault. The distances are too great. We were on the run for nearly 3 weeks before you saved us, Wyatt. There were no communications detected from Faldo nor any other originating from the fleet itself, and yet we were ambushed. How so? She's right. The fleet has been under a strict communication lockdown ever since we arrived. Common protocol to elude detection for as long as possible. If that's the case, then how could a traitor communicate with others? Wyatt thought about her words long and hard for several moments before he spoke up. The only way a traitor could avoid detection and also give enough time to nearby forces to mobilize would be through the use of a quantum entanglement communicator. But those are ruinously expensive. Clara nodded once. I'm glad to see that you are as intelligent as you are cunning and brave, Wyatt. Yes, that is the only way a traitor could pass on information without our notice. The fleet's communication has been subjected to containment protocols and only ship-to-ship laser communication. Blushing at the praise he got, he continued. A communicator like that can't be easy to hide, and who could even afford one in the first place? Or who could be so deceptive or loyal to the Duke's side to have earned the trust to take one? Are we looking at a single traitor hidden among us, or at multiple ones working in conjunction? He fired question after question, and then he sighed. Just thinking about it makes my head spin. It is a dilemma that we're looking into, a dire one. We were expecting traitors within our ranks, but not in such a manner, Clara admitted, and certainly not to operate with such efficiency. Am I to aid the prince in such a task? He asked tactfully. Unless your direct intervention is needed, then no. Like it or not, Wyatt, you've become a prominent figure within the fleet. Any traitor would steer clear from trying to recruit you to the Duke's side and their cause. Your loyalty has already marked you as innocent in our eyes and a trusted individual we can rely upon. Hence why I requested you to be my pilot during this mission of mine." She finished with a knowing, playful smile. Wyatt bowed his head slightly and chuckled to himself softly. "I am honored and humbled to hear that a princess entrusts her safety to a commoner such as I." "Think nothing of it, Wyatt," Clara countered with a wave of her hand. "Now that such a bothersome topic is out of the way, I shall inform you of the reason I am heading to Woodshaft. Simply put, I shall arrive incognito and arrange a meeting with whoever rules the station. I will then handle negotiations that should gain us as many capable ships, crews, and extra supplies as can be gathered and spared, as well as passage to House Finnegan territory. And you," she said, pointing a dainty armored finger at him, "will be our guide." Wyatt nodded. "Makes sense. I'm the only one in the fleet who even knows about Woodshaft. I shall do everything in my power to aid you, Clara." "I am pleased to hear that, Wyatt. You can begin by telling us why the station is called Woodshaft in the first place," she asked, leaning in curiously. Next to her, Cynthia shook her head while a faint smile spread across her lips. "It's not an exciting story, but I obey," replied the lieutenant. "Over 1,000 years ago, there was a military station that was decommissioned but never dismantled. A group of pirates called the Woodshaft Plunderers took over the station and turned it into their base of operations. They thought that, since the station was there to oversee the common exit and entry FTL jump points between Caiston and Finnegan territories, then they could get a fortune by performing repeated raids on passing cargo freighters and other ships. They were right, but not in the usual way pirates tend to operate. "I thought you said Woodshaft wasn't a pirate den," Cynthia remarked, crossing her arms. "Don't jump to conclusions so easily, Cynthia. Let him finish." "Go on, Wyatt," Clara interjected, eagerly waiting for him to continue. Nodding and smiling internally at Cynthia's impatient outburst, he continued. "Turns out that the reason the military station was decommissioned was because the threat of Drazen raids had been all but neutralized, and more civilian ships could transit the system. More than any pirate group could ever hope to hit. So the leader at the time decided that instead of raiding ships, they would simply demand a toll for safe passage. It worked. A little too well, in fact. Within 2 years, the pirate group disbanded and instead became a criminal syndicate that focused on smuggling, trafficking, and information brokerage. The name Woodshaft stuck around, and as time went by, the syndicate transformed until it also disbanded as they stopped engaging in more criminal activities. Today, Woodshaft is just a smuggler's den. A big one, though. A smuggler den that sounds more like a regular commerce station. Am I to assume that the reason it remains illegal is due to certain products available and the means to acquire them? Clara asked, eyes beaming with curiosity. On that note, how is it possible for this station to be so big without official support from the Principality shipyards? You are correct on that assumption, Clara, and to answer your second question, it is rather simple. They use wrecks, scrap, and other junk to make repairs, keep expanding, and provide a crude anchorage for larger ships, Wyatt added. Cheap, effective, but dangerous, but it works, so there's that. Cynthia frowned. Why has House Caiston not done anything about this Woodshaft? Criminality is to be expunged regardless if they are traitors or not. Surely the Third Fleet, lackluster as it is, should be more than capable of ending such an operation. I wonder if she's asking out of a sense of justice and order or out of noble pride and ego, Wyatt asked himself before replying. Simply put, Cynthia, why should they? Why should... Explain. Cynthia's stoic expression broke to show confusion and interest. Woodshaft's overseer, whoever they may be at any given point in time, have a treaty with House Caiston. They get a share of the goods and profits, and in turn, they allow Woodshaft to operate freely. Woodshaft isn't defenseless either, but instead of wasting resources on removing a good source of income, illegal as it may be, the Caistons and other minor noble houses benefit from it, not to mention commoners and other organizations. He shrugged. They're smugglers and petty criminals, not pirates. Such minor offenses can be overlooked as long as they don't call upon the ire of the Caitons or other prominent houses. It is disgraceful regardless of any pittance the Caistons and those lowly nobles receive from such activities. To deal with criminals of any sort is an insult to the principality as a whole, Cynthia remarked while Clara covered her mouth to hide a giggle. And now you're going to deal with those criminals to ensure a quick passage to Finnegan territory, Cynthia, Wyatt thought, allowing himself to enjoy that sweet irony. It has been over a year since my last visit, though. I do not know if Uriel Hoax is still in charge. If he is, then you can expect a fairly balanced deal with him. Splendid! Clara exclaimed, clapping her hands together. Now, Wyatt, what can I expect to find in Woodshaft? What objects can be found there? All sorts of things. Engines, ship parts, commonplace appliances, weapons of all sorts, food, crops, repair services, electronic parts, information. If you look deep enough, you'll likely find what you're looking for. Not just human-made, too, Wyatt replied. A ping alerted him that the first navigation point was about to be reached. He glanced back at the monitor to ensure everything was in order before returning to the two passengers. In regards to violence, Woodshaft is still a criminal den, so I'll advise against publicly stating that you're royalty. Less so given the circumstances, he smiled at Clara, giving her an approving nod. Do these commoners not know the punishment for assaulting a noble? Cynthia asked, though her tone showed concern rather than outrage. Wyatt scoffed before he could refrain from doing so. Oh, they know all right. Most of them don't care. And not just the commoners. There are bastards, exiled, and disgraced nobles, too. Who is there to uphold the law that isn't the one applied within Woodshaft itself? There are no enforcers or guards there to defend any visiting noble. You're only safe if you already have an established base within Woodshaft, or you carry enough protection with you to deter any would-be assaulters. Cynthia groaned. In other words, Woodshaft is just a step above from being a common den of scum and villainy? Wyatt tilted his head slightly, unable to hide a, "You said it, not me." We'll be fine as long as we're cautious, Clara added. I wish to deal with this overseer regardless of anything, although you've opened my eyes to new perspectives, and now I can adjust my plans accordingly. Thank you, Wyatt, she said before leaning back on her seat. There's something I've been wondering about, Wyatt, and I wish for you to give me an answer. I ask you not as a princess, but rather as a friend. You are not forced to answer if you don't want to. We both know that that's a lie, Clara. You're pleasant and amicable, and I can respect that much. But you can't expect me to believe those words, he thought as he bowed his head in return. The last time we spoke, you mentioned that the reason you became a pilot was due to your desire to see the stars and serve the principality. Does that mean that you desire glory? Renown? Clara asked softly but firmly while her purple eyes pierced his brown ones. Wyatt sighed tiredly and pointed a finger at himself. Clara, I'm a commoner. Not even one of high standing. I do not need glory or renown outside of what I earn for myself. I do not seek it nor crave for it. And yet your actions so far have claimed much of it. Finding a new way to beat ZTK 990 and being the one responsible for destroying that stealth cruiser on top of saving my princess's life? I do not know if I should be reassured that you're an honorable man or worried that you seem to lack ambition, Cynthia pointed out. Ambition. What a funny word, Wyatt retorted. I won't deny that ambition, when it is measured and focused, is a good thing. It was what led humanity as a whole to the stars, and what eventually founded the principality. I know my place in the world, Cynthia. I do not lack ambition. I simply know what I want. What is it that you want, Wyatt? What great ambitions do you desire fulfilled? Clara asked pointedly. Serve fully within the military until I can retire with honors and reap all the benefits that come with it. Marry, have kids, enjoy my life, and be content with what I was able to achieve, he replied honestly. But inside, he wanted to kick his own ass. Why? Why am I being so open with them? I've never felt so comfortable sharing this with anyone but my brothers before. I don't even know them that well yet, and one's a noble and the other a princess of the principality. But I can't help myself. Have I craved for someone to hear my sincere thoughts all this time? Clara's expression dropped, and a faint sadness crossed her features. Is that all you aspire to achieve, Wyatt? He shrugged. It may sound selfish or pointless to you, Princess, but to a commoner like myself, the prospect of having security in life is a most valued treasure. I could have entered a merchant piloting school or become a scavenger to see the stars. But serving the principality was by far the better option. I proved my worth, and despite my posting, I never complained. The benefits of an eventual retirement were too good to pass up. You wished to serve the principality for your benefit? Cynthia asked, perplexed, as if that was an option that had never occurred to her before. What's not to like about that? Wyatt replied. The health care program alone is worth it. Add to that a stable pension, military service rights, protection, preferences, and the right to pass on my career to my offspring are some of the best things a middling commoner can ever hope to achieve. If all I have to do is serve my nation faithfully and to the best of my abilities in return, then I'll happily do it. His shoulders slumped and cracked his neck in frustration. Or rather, that was my plan until this coup began. Now I'm not sure. There's no guarantee that I'll survive long enough to see the end of this conflict. I shall stand by the prince's side. That much I can assure you, Clara. Clara blinked twice, then tilted her head to the side as she tapped her chin repeatedly. Wyatt, be honest with me. Do you hate the nobility and, by extension, the royalty? Clara, Cynthia exclaimed, flabbergasted. This is it? This is how I die? If I talk out of my ass, I'm dead. If I lie, I'm dead. If I tell the truth, I'm dead, he thought as a tiny smirk spread across his lips. Despite the dread pounding in his heart, he felt a wave of humor and relief wash over him. Steeling his heart, he made his decision. I obey, he began. I won't lie to you, Clara. I hold no love for the nobility. I certainly envy certain aspects of being a noble. What commoner doesn't? But I'm not a blind idiot either. I know the struggle of nobility, their role, and the dangers involved with it. Most nobles abuse their positions and love to put commoners down just to get a kick out of it. Regardless of every reason I have to dislike nobility, I do not hate anyone who does not deserve it. Same goes for respect. Royalty, however, is a different story. So far, I can only feel respect and admiration toward the prince and to you, my princess. Clara nodded, beaming with a sincere smile. Would you like to become a noble, Wyatt? Good heavens, no! Wyatt barked out a laugh. I know my place in the world. I'm a pilot, and that's all I'll ever be. You shouldn't put yourself down like that, Wyatt. You may lack the knowledge and education needed to be one, but with your current skills, you could become an exceptional knight, said the blue-haired woman. My sister is considering offering you a vacancy in our house. Knighthood? The unofficial and honorary noble title that a commoner can achieve either through merit or by buying the title, Wyatt thought, as if a long-lost dream had come to slap him across the face. If Lady Juliana offers me such an honor, I don't know if I could accept it. I've never aspired to be more than I am. Many would crave such an opportunity, but not you, Clara interjected, her expression shifting to one of understanding. Commoners, nobles, royals, we all have our roles to play and rules to abide by, limitations to endure, fates to fulfill. In that regard, I can't deny that she's right, he thought in agreement. Many commoners believe that nobles can do whatever they want. It is partially true when seen through a single perspective, but nobles also have to worry about more than their own lives or that of their family, he scoffed. But not having to worry about your next meal, the damn taxes rising, offending someone by breaking a petty rule, or not kissing someone's ass enough must be nice. Clara and Cynthia nodded, much to his surprise. Each of us lives within our prisons, Clara said. Gilged or ironed, it matters little. 2 minutes of cold silence passed between them until Wyatt spoke up again. How about we break some of those bars? He asked, smiling. Pardon? Clara asked, blinking twice in confusion. Cynthia said nothing, but was equally stunned. Would you like to know what it feels like to pilot a ship, Clara? He asked sincerely. I'm likely dead anyway. After what I said, she'd think of me as a potential traitor for my lack of blind loyalty. Might as well see how far I can take this. Clara, blushing profusely, turned to Cynthia. Did you tell him? No, of course not, Clara, Cynthia replied, color draining from her face as she raised her hands before her. Now it was Wyatt's turn to be confused. What? Clara, still blushing, turned to face him again and stared into his eyes for several seconds until she looked away, fidgeting nervously as she did. How did you figure it out? Okay, what? Figure what out? Did I break some sort of protocol or something? Great. Wyatt Staples, pilot and master idiot everyone, he thought, genuinely put off by her reaction. Clara, my princess, What are you talking about? He thought someone's face couldn't become redder, but Clara proved him wrong. Helpless and wanting an answer, he turned to Cynthia while Clara covered her face with both hands. Cynthia sighed, patting her friend's shoulder gently. Clara, I swear I didn't tell him anything. Clara whined, too ashamed to uncover her face. And let's be perfectly honest, my princess. The love for your hobby isn't precisely well hidden, Cynthia added. Clara removed her hands to reveal a pouting expression. I know, but it's still embarrassing. I'm a princess. Hobby? Royalty? I can have hobbies? Wyatt asked himself, stunned at the unintentional revelation. He wasn't a close-minded man. He never saw nobles as anything less than human despite their advantages and how insufferably arrogant, prideful, and cruel they could be. He was well aware that any commoner was capable of those same faults. They were human, after all. But it had never occurred to him that those in such privileged positions of wealth and power could have hobbies like any other commoner. It was a humbling experience, and it changed his opinion of the two women in front of him. Then, the pieces came together in this mind. Clara's interest and fixation on his experience as a pilot, her presence during the competition, and her reaction to his offer led him to conclude one thing. Clara, he began, and the two women slowly turned to him only to see his bemused smile. Are you interested in piloting? Clara's face, red as it was, turned dangerously close to looking like the surface of a red dwarf. I know it's unbecoming for a princess to like such things. Wyatt chuckled. Clara, I am not judging you, and I am no one to do so. I am merely surprised to have discovered it. Piloting isn't something to be ashamed about. That may be the case for you, Wyatt. Cynthia pressed on, supporting her friend as she slowly regained her composure. But for royalty, to show interest in something that is considered to be beneath them, it can become a grave point of insult or exploitation by any rival. Of that, I do not know nothing about. But what I do know is that if it is a harmless diversion, then you shouldn't be ashamed of it. His cheeks flushed slightly, relaxing his posture. Take me, for example. I have not done it in quite some time, but I like wood carving. I also like painting, and as silly as this sounds, knitting. Knitting? Clara's face suddenly brightened. You know knitting? Mom always wanted a daughter, but she only had my brothers and me. She used me as a knitting partner in preparation for her future daughter. But she never came, and I ended up liking it. It's relaxing and peaceful, Wyatt replied. It's only fair that I share my own embarrassing secret since I pretty much discovered hers on accident, he thought defeatedly. It seems we have that in common, Cynthia said, joining the conversation with a mild blush present on her cheeks. I, too, enjoy knitting, and not only because every lady needs to learn it for the sake of etiquette. In that case, Wyatt clapped his hands and stood up, to celebrate this embarrassing moment, why don't you take on my offer? Clara looked apprehensive at first, but then slowly stood up and made her way to the pilot's seat. Wyatt stepped aside, giving her all the room she needed to sit down and sink into the seat. He froze for a moment when he saw the wide, vivid smile of the princess as she shakily put her hands on the controllers with a familiarity that was both fearful and longing. She knows how to hold them, but she's clearly a novice. What sort of piloting is she interested in? Going against his better judgment, he placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. She wouldn't feel it through the armor she was wearing, but the pressure was enough for her to turn at him with wide, worried, excited eyes. Do you have any experience whatsoever, Clara? He asked cautiously but firmly. She shook her head. All my experience comes from watching videos of all sorts regarding fighter engagements, shows, tactics, and model rundowns. This is my first time touching the controllers of a real spacecraft, she confessed. You're interested in fighters? He asked, letting go of her shoulder and taking a seat on the co-pilot's seat. Yes, she let out excitedly. Larger ships may be powerful and other vehicles better armored or more versatile. But the nimbleness of a fighter can't be matched. The speed, the grace, that wonderful sensation of freedom and the strain a pilot experiences when flying one in the vast expanse of the cosmos, it must be an exhilarating experience. Wyatt smiled sincerely. Clara Astor, second princess of the principality, had described the reason he loved being a pilot. Even if it costs me my life now, I don't care. I'll let her experience some of that joy herself, he thought, unable to look away from the beaming princess. It isn't like that all the time, Clara. Being a pilot is more than just enjoying the ride. You have to be aware of every detail and information available to you. A single mistake can cost you dearly. As the ancient saying goes, before you run, you must learn to crawl. For a pilot, before you learn to fly, you first need to spread your wings, he said, and before Clara's expression could drop, he continued. Computer, disengage autopilot. Disabling, the computer replied. A second later, there was a shudder before Clara yelped in surprise, and all she learned through countless hours of watching all manner of videos and guides on the subject came to the forefront of her mind. With a firm hold, she stabilized the shuttle's path, and calm returned. How unfortunate, Cynthia called out from the back. It seems some debris hit us. Unfortunate, Wyatt repeated, quickly marking the incident as such. Now, take it easy and just follow the path. Take note of your sensors and be ready to take any course corrections if need be, Wyatt instructed the nervous but smiling princess. It may not be a fighter, but this is the best that I can do for you, Clara. Thank you, Wyatt. Sincerely, thank you, Clara replied softly, her sing-song voice showing nothing but gratitude. Tell me, is it that much different when you're engaged in battle? Wyatt nodded. Incredibly so. The world around you doesn't matter anymore. Just the now, your enemy, your allies, and the chance that you may die. It is always a possibility. The rush of combat is hard to describe, truth be told, but once you dominate it, you will become a great fighter pilot. During the competition, we noticed that you were eager to engage the enemy. Do you enjoy battle, Wyatt? Do you seek the glory of defeating your enemies? Cynthia asked. Wyatt went silent for a few seconds, his mind calm and focused and debating if he should tell them or not. Opting for the former, he let out a soft sigh. I do not seek glory, but I enjoy the thrill of battle against the scum that tried to harm me and my home. I've seen what the Drazen do to their prisoners. Pirates are only a step above and just as bad in most cases. I feel a sense of accomplishment and the vindication that I put down an enemy of the principality for good. He paused for a moment. And yet, I would be happy if I never engaged in battle again. That's why I didn't complain about my posting as a compost hauler, no matter how monotonous and boring it was. The satisfaction of a job well done is what I take pride in at the end of the day. Loyalty is its own reward, Clara muttered. But loyalty to who and to what? Wyatt thought as the travel continued. Much to Wyatt's surprise, he only intervened one time and spent the rest of the time teaching Clara how to sit properly, how to read through the display monitors quickly, and what information was relevant and which she could safely ignore. The fact that he was more or less instructing a princess how to fly a shuttle wasn't as mind-blowing as he thought it would be, but he enjoyed the experience. They switched places only when Woodshaft was mere minutes away. A ping signaled the station was trying to communicate with them. Wyatt opened the channel, and a feminine voice, gruff and throaty, came to life. Transport shuttle, the fuck are you? She asked. Woodshaft, transport shuttle D-22 requesting permission to land. I repeat, transport shuttle D-22 requesting permission to land, Wyatt spoke to the communicator. Cargo and business? An escort of Marines, and we seek diplomatic dealings with the overseer, he replied, internally wincing as he followed the orders given to him. You with the dim-witted Castons? Negative. Then welcome aboard, but no funny business. Land on hangar B-11. Someone will be waiting for you to take you to Uriel Hulks. With that, the connection ended. Such improper conduct! So crude! Cynthia exclaimed, outraged. Not a single show of respect for protocol at all. Disgraceful! Honestly, what did you expect from a criminal stronghold? Juice and sweets? He asked himself, finding the situation funny. Following the instruction previously given, he flew to the B-11 hangar and landed. After pressurization, he stood up and the shuttle's engines died out. As he turned around, he saw Clara and Cynthia putting on their helmets. He put on his and opened the door, allowing the two women to step into Woodshaft. He was mildly surprised when he saw a group of a dozen armed guards set around the only unarmed figure before them. The Marines disembarked and quickly formed up without drawing their weapons. Seriously? 30-odd Marines as an escort? The man asked through his speakers. At least that confirms you're not with the damn Castons. All right, who's going to meet with Uriel? That would be us, Cynthia stepped forth. You three, eh? Fine. Your escorts can follow, but you better keep your damn grubby paws where I can see 'em. People be having a twitching trigger finger ever since the Castons tried to Armstrong us. Dumb idiots got blown up real good. Saw the battle from the long-range sensors. If you want, you can visit the shops and kiosks after Uriel is done with you lot. You'll get a discount on the house. I appreciate your offer, but we won't stay long, if you please, Cynthia said, and the man shrugged, signaling his guards to lower their weapons and clear a path ahead. As they walked through the ugly, gray, poorly illuminated pathways and sections of woodshaft, the mismatched nature of its construction and expansion was exactly how Wyatt remembered it. Some parts once belonged to a ship, others to stations. Some were of Dratzan, Yikanti, and even Tilgor design. People gave them a wide margin once they entered the more populated areas, and he could see a few Yikanti among the humans looking at them with suspicion. He couldn't blame them. Their guide wasn't precisely subtle that the Castons had tried to do something against Woodshaft, and it wasn't every day a significant force of Marines came to their doorstep. It seems the tour is canceled, he muttered to himself when noticing that security was tight. Shame, I wanted to stock on dried meats and toasted beans. Dried meats and toasted beans? Clara asked curiously through his implant, nearly startling him. Opening a private channel, he replied, Clara, how are you talking to me right now? That's a small secret I'll keep. But since I'm your commanding officer for now, I thought I might as well make some small talk. Trust me, the worst part about any diplomatic meeting is the build-up. She paused for a moment, looking around her surroundings. Such a shame, too. I would have liked to see more of this station, but it seems they are dealing with their own problems. Putting that aside, what were you talking about regarding foodstuffs, Wyatt? Wyatt stared at the princess from behind the safety of his helmet as intensely as he could. But try as he may, he was unable to see her curiosity as nothing else but sincere. What are you playing at, Clara? If you're playing anything at all? Or am I just paranoid? He asked himself before proceeding to reply to her question.